then your father says, okay, you want to run for vice mayor, and you say,
No, Dad, I want to run for mayor.
no.
This is Breaking Glass.
Okay. This is the story. Perky, 21-year-old, international school-educated, princess-dreaming party girl, fashionista from a wealthy family, studies in an exclusive business college in the US, realizes she does not want riches after all, decides while at school to become mayor of a small town in Palawan. This is, of course, the true-to-life story of our guest, Pai Alvarez, the mayor of San Vicente. Pai, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me here, Jay.
You know, the question is, why? Why become mayor of a small town in Palawan?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, get that a lot. But, I throw the question back to why not? The Philippines is my home. The Filipino people, are my fellow countrymen, and there's so many of them that need help, that need the support, that need the assistance. And I think it's about time that younger people are involved in politics, and I think it's the right time that people from my generation take a stand and be in more positions that lead.
There's a story you tell about you telling your family of your intentions, and then your father says, okay, you want to run for vice mayor, and you say,
No, Dad, I want to run for mayor.
no, your mom was a different story, right?
Yes.
Why didn't she want you to run?
Well, actually, no one else in my family wanted me to run. My mom and my siblings were all against it.
Why?
I think it's because in the Philippines, we're very used to having this mindset about politics and the government and it being very negative. And so, being the youngest in my family, I don't think any of my family members would see it as a good thing that I would be entering basically a pit of danger. And that's basically it.
You hit a point there. We are quite cynical of politicians. I, for example, have a hard time trusting anybody over 40 years old in government.
That's
now,
why they should be less than,
less than 40 years old.
They should be under 40.
Exactly.
So maybe you'll trust them more.
Exactly. But do you think my cynicism is misplaced?
I feel the same way. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I want to correct the system. I want to help improve the system. I've been very negative about the Philippine government throughout.
It's a sport.
Definitely. Even when I was in college, I had discussions with my Filipino friends in the States, and they didn't want to go back to the Philippines because they were so sick and tired of the local government and how it wasn't really being efficient or progressing the country forward. And so I had the same mentality, but I wanted to do something about it, and I didn't want to just complain and look the other way. I was going to complain, but do something.
No, I'll be honest. Okay, I'm even quite cynical about you. I'm sorry, I know.
Sure.
While researching on you, you come off as somebody naive, quirky, daddy's little girl. You're open about it. You shop Gaultier in Singapore. You salon at Emphasis at the Manila Peninsula. And your favorite cheesecake is in a department store in Tokyo.
Yes.
I'm thinking, is she just playing princess, a rich girl's dream come true? Can you really connect with your constituents? I think, does she understand what the people need, or are you just going to supply everybody with Prada?
Right. Well, that would not be economically feasible to supply everyone with Prada, although it would be nice. No, well, where do I begin? First off, it has to do with my upbringing, with my family. Although I was very blessed and privileged my entire life, I was never taught, or I was never, given by my parents anything with a silver spoon. I've always had to work for it, regardless of what it was, whether it was a piece of candy or a nice birthday present, during my birthday, I always had to work for it. And so that mentality and that system where I always had to, strive hard to accomplish my goals and reach my dreams was something very early on I've had inside and at my core.
You connect though with your people?
Yeah, a lot of people will think, because of where I come from or my family or also where I stand, they say, oh, she's just, this person. And I think we shouldn't stereotype people in the first place. I think if we keep stereotyping people at a certain, level, then how do you look past that? And when you ask me about if I get to understand the locals in San Vicente. I mean, I think it's really my job to understand them, and I think that's why I won, was because during the elections, instead of me campaigning and saying, being a preacher and saying, I will, do this, I will do this, vote for me because I'm this. I stopped doing that, and I didn't even start, and I just listened to them, and I said, ano ba yung kailangan nyo? Ano ba yung mga problema ninyo? And how can we find a solution? And by doing that, I was able to discover all these problems in different villages. In one barangay, they didn't have access to clean water. In another barangay, the rice resources were scarce. And so these are problems, and these are support systems that are needed to be provided by the government, which weren't. And these are very simple. And all I had to do was take the microphone from me and give it to them.
And listen to them.
And listen to them,
Right. A great divide exists in this country between the have a lot and the have very little. It's a divide that does not just physically exist, but more importantly is in here. We don't really care for the poor, because think about it, if we did, we wouldn't be in the situation we'd be in now. Yet you seem to have transcended that divide.
I'm a fan of this, the rich versus poor, or the poor versus rich, and saying the big difference between the two. Most often people will say the poor are poor. They won't even consider them as people. But I look at them as people who need opportunities that just didn't get it like we did. And so there has to be that understanding and that sensitivity towards people who are poverty stricken, because they're hungry, homeless, jobless. And at the end of the day, they live an every man for themselves kind of mentality and lifestyle. And we don't have that. We have a roof over our heads, we have food on the table, we can put our children to school. But they live every single day hoping to feed their family, hoping to be warm and dry at night, and hoping to have, enough sustenance for the future. And so it's a completely different mindset. And for me, I mean, yes, I belong in one segment, but it doesn't mean that I can't help those that need, the assistance. And with these residents in San Vicente, 30,000 of them, 80% live below poverty. It's really my job to be able to bridge that gap and give them the opportunities that they would otherwise not get.
Let's talk about that later, but first, let's do some, show us some pictures.
Sure.
I want them to see what San Vicente is like. This one here, you were officiating
a wedding.
A wedding,
yes.
That's right.
I had to do my first wedding when I was 21 years old. My first 2 weeks in office. And they basically said, Mayor, may gusto magpakasal, kailangan niyo pong mag-officiate. So, I've never had any experience prior to that, a wedding, officiating a wedding. And so they basically gave me a to-do list, 1 to 10, saying, first you state the name, and then you look at the sponsors and the family members and the parents. And then at the very end, it says, give marriage counseling. And, I was only 21 years old, so I'm like, anong ika-counsel ko dyan? I'm being honest. I mean, that's the one thing about me is I'm always honest, and if I have a question, I will ask. And so I looked at my department head, and I'm like, what marriage counseling will a 21-year-old give to a couple that's getting married? I mean, I can say, okay, love each other, but really, and so that's part of the job. It's part of the job. And I've done 18 weddings since.
Oh, wow. I think that's you with your
campaigning.
Campaigning,
yes, my hair was still short then.
Okay. And you just had the
our mud festival.
Mud festival recently,
yes,
right?
the Malagnang Mud Festival. We just had it.
Ah, beautiful.
It looks like Jurassic Park.
You're right. Wow. Ah.
The kids. There's so many kids. So many kids who want to have candy and afternoon snacks.
The morning exercise.
Yes,
right?
every flag ceremony, flag retreat, we have our employees do a dancercise to Lady Gaga or any other pop song that's current. One thing I learned in San Vicente is everybody loves to dance till 5 in the morning. They beat anybody in the local clubs here. And the employees have been sitting on their chairs for the longest time. So I said, you know what, in order to get your minds working and to be able to have positive inputs into the office, you need to at least have the blood pumping and the energy good in your system.
So you instituted this
we
whole
do the dance
thing.
aerobics twice a week. Actually, I want to do it every day for 5 days. But then the employees were complaining that they were sweating so much right after, and they didn't want to change because they only had a few sets of uniforms. So twice a week.
Right. Perhaps a holdover from our feudal past. You know, a mayor here really isn't somebody who just governs, but is the community's patriarch or matriarch,
Yes.
and also the rural bank or the doctor.
Everything.
Yeah.
You know, when they say, okay, they give job descriptions, they should say for local Philippine mayors, for, you know, each town, it really entails your whole life. You have no private life. You know, you have to be a disposable ATM. You have to have several helping hands. You have to have insane patience, and it's really not an easy job.
And you even tell a story about your police chief who happens to be a lady
Yes.
crying to you
Yes.
with issues.
Yes,
That's
I mean, at the end of the day, even though I'm 24 years old, I'm seen as the mother. They always call me siya ang ina ng San Vicente, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm already a mom, you know. And they look to me for everything, you know, whether somebody gets bit by a crocodile at 5 in the morning, or there's domestic disputes, or somebody stole someone's chicken from the neighboring house, or to my chief of police, who is, you know, a woman. And yeah, she cried to me a few times when she had personal problems. And I just had to sit there. I mean, like, I'm in my office, and she comes in with like a really, you know, disturbed look on her face, and just started to vent. And I was just there, okay, water, you know. It's like, it's not gonna be okay, it's gonna be all right. And I'm really learning to adapt more with this job, with people's attitudes and feelings, because it's so crucial.
It's all about
Everyone
feelings.
is so sensitive and emotional.
And you've also introduced Halloween in your town. Am I correct?
Yes. I'm a big fan of all these, I guess, Western celebrations, such as Halloween. But, you know, when I was growing up in the Philippines, in Manila, as a kid, we would always, you know, have trick-or-treats in the village, and it was fun to dress up in costume. And, you know, you would dress up in somebody who you wanted to be, like a doctor or a policewoman or someone scary. So I thought about bringing it to San Vicente, because my town has never experienced Halloween. So I even went to Divisoria to buy 1,000 jack-o'-lantern, you know, candy dispensers. And when I brought it to my municipio, my staff were like, Mayor, ano bang tong tabong to? You know, and so for me, that's just something that they're missing out on for the fun of life, you know. Just so I held a ball, the scary night in San Vicente. Come in your most scariest costumes. We even had like a horror tunnel where I made the engineering department build, you know, fake coffins, and they didn't want to do it because they're so superstitious, and they didn't want to rent the coffin either and be lying on it. So I said, okay, who wants to volunteer to pretend to be dead? Like, Mayor, hindi puede. Like, you know, they're so traditional in that sense. So actually, all my volunteers were all from high school. It was all the kids who wanted to do it, and they loved it. They loved it. They were doing backflips like Emily Rose in the horror tunnel. I mean, it was really scary. And what was the most important, actually the funnest part, was when they dressed in costume. There was so much, I guess, there were so many people who were unsure of what they wanted to do. If they were like, should I do this or should I do it? There was so much hesitation. And when the event day came itself, I was so shocked, because everyone's costume, maybe like 2,000 people attended. Everyone's costume was the scariest you could ever be. Like here, you'd see Tinkerbell, you'd see like, you know, Superman. There, it's Superman but dead.
Yes,
it's Tinkerbell with blood.
That's funny, because I've seen that in other provinces also. That when it's Halloween, we seem to have this morbid.
It's insane. Like they're an angel but zombie.
Yeah, like
you know,
that.
so it's
That's
complete,
true,
but
that's
it's fun. It's fun.
No, you're